إذاعة الجزائر الدولية، صوتنا في العالم.
With Radio Algeria International, you will not miss a single major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Mr. Al-Majid Tebboune, has ordered the setting up of an investigation committee to inquire on the tragic accident that occurred yesterday at the July 5th Stadium. Iran has called for an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council in the wake of the US attacks launched overnight against its nuclear sites. And Algeria has expressed its deep concern and dismay at the current escalation caused by the Israeli aggression against Iran, stressing that the US shelling on Iranian nuclear facilities will exacerbate the situation. And Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf has warned from Istanbul against the repercussions of the Zionist aggression against Iran. And those were the major developments. Now the full news edition. I'm Asia Bakar. Good afternoon. The President of the Republic, Mr. Al-Majid Tebboune, has extended his condolences following the death of Mouloudia Club d'Alger MCA supporter on Saturday at the July 5th Stadium. The President of the Republic wrote on his social media account saying, following the painful ordeal that befell the Mouloudia d'Alger supporters today at the July 5th Stadium, he offered his sincere condolences to the family of the deceased supporter. He also extended his condolences to the supporters and staff of Mouloudia d'Alger, praying that the Almighty grant those injured in this accident a speedy recovery so that they may quickly return to their loved ones. Meanwhile, the President ordered the setting up of an investigation committee to investigate the circumstances of the tragic accident that occurred yesterday at the stadium, which claimed the lives of fans and injured others. According to a communique from the Prime Minister's office, the committee will identify shortcomings and responsibilities and hold those involved accountable. Its report will be submitted as soon as possible to take the necessary legal measures to prevent the recurrence of such painful accidents. The committee includes in particular representatives from the Ministries of Interior, Justice, Housing and Sports, as well as the relevant departments of the National Gendarmerie Command, the General Directorate of National Security, the Technical Building Control Authority, and officials from the Mouloudia Club of Algiers. You still listen to Radio Algeria International, and entrusted by the President of the Republic, a delegation comprising the Minister of Health, Abdelhak Saihi, the Minister of Youth, Mr. Mustafa Hidawi, and the Presidential Advisor in charge of the General Directorate of Communications, Mr. Kamal Sidi Said, the Secretaries General of the Ministries of Sports and the Interior, as well as the Governor of Algiers, visited these supporters injured in the incident or at the July 5th Stadium in Algiers. The visit included injured supporters at the Ibn Aknoun Hospital, the Mohammed Lamin Debarin Hospital in Bab el-Wad, and the Ibn Masous Hospital, where the delegation inquired about the health of the injured and the conditions under which they were being treated. And now to our international news. Iran has called for an emergency meeting of the Security Council in the wake of the US attacks launched overnight against its nuclear sites. Mohammed Khatel.
Iran's representative to the UN urged the Council to respond without delay to and to condemn, in its strongest words, the US's blatant and illegal attacks, and to take all the necessary measures and assume its responsibility and safeguard international peace and security as provided for by the UN Charter. He recalled that the US, in coordination with the Israeli authorities, had bombarded at the same moment Iranian civilians as well as sensitive infrastructure and carried out deliberate and planned airstrikes against 3 nuclear facilities in Fordo, Natanz and Isfahan. The U.S. attacks were strongly condemned by the Iranian Atomic Energy Agency as a blatant violation of international law and as an incautious provocation that will not remain unpunished. It affirmed that the barbaric and illegal acts of aggression that targeted 3 peaceful nuclear plants had breached the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and urged the international community to denounce the U.S.'s behavior and support Iran's defense of its legitimate rights. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi rejected as unacceptable the U.S. attacks, saying that Tehran reserves the right to use all options to defend itself. In a message posted on social media, he called on all UN member states to show vigilance in the face of what he termed such an extremely dangerous and illegal behavior that constitutes a crime. This came as the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres condemned the U.S. attacks as a serious escalation in the region, which is already on the edge, and as a direct threat posed to peace and security in the world. He called on the member states to de-escalate and to uphold their obligations under the UN Charter and other rules of the international law. Earlier, the European Union's diplomacy chief called for a de-escalation and for a return to the negotiating table and avert any further tensions. In a similar move, the Arab League firmly condemned the U.S. strikes, describing the attack as a dangerous violation of international law and as a provocation that threatens to ignite a greater regional war.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and in a time marked by the international community's consensus to stem tensions in the region, the Israeli aggression targeted the Iranian Islamic Republic yesterday night in a very dangerous escalation, further exacerbated by the U.S. shelling on the Iranian nuclear facilities. In a communique issued by the Algerian Foreign Ministry, Algeria said the international community is still highlighting the vital importance of a ceasefire, the return to the negotiating table, as well as the real search for a peaceful solution to the Iranian nuclear file in good faith. Algeria has expressed its deep concern and dismay at the current escalation, which is endangering the situation in the region, leading to unprecedented and incalculated consequences. Algeria stresses that the sensitiveness and danger of the current situation impose on all sides to learn from the history of the region, which proved that a military offensive has never solved a single of the many problems facing the Middle East. The current major priority lies, Algeria said, in returning to the wise and peaceful political path that is based on the rules and laws of the international legality, as well as the UN Charter, which is likely to spare the region more tensions and drama. Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has warned from Istanbul against the repercussions of the Zionist aggression against Iran. In a speech delivered at the 51st session of the Council of Foreign Ministers of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, Mr. Attaf affirmed that security and peace in the Middle East cannot be achieved without addressing the core conflict in the region, namely the Palestinian issue.
Peace and security in the Middle East cannot be achieved without addressing the core of the conflict in the region, which is the Palestinian question. Therefore, it is necessary to end the occupation of the Palestinian and Arab territories and accelerate the setting up of the necessary conditions for the establishment of an independent and sovereign Palestinian state with Al-Quds as its capital. Peace and security in the Middle East cannot be achieved without imposing on all and equal respect for the norms of international law. This is about ending the special status enjoyed by the Israeli occupation, a status based on impunity.
The Algerian diplomacy chief said the situation is not just serious but even dramatic as the international law and the United Nations Charter are being flouted, international relations are being subjected to logical force, and fundamental notions are being reversed, as now some are arguing for the right of the aggressor to defend itself against the aggressed. He said absolute hegemony has led the aggressor to clearly display its intention to reshape the Middle East and the entire international system. Ahmed Attaf said the Israeli aggression against Iran opens all possibilities of risks leading to multifaceted and multidimensional catastrophes with uncertain consequences.
Such is the situation which is currently prevailing in the Middle East, scene of unprecedented horrors in terms of seriousness, dimensions, and repercussions. Today, an Israeli aggression against Iran and a war open to all possibilities could lead to multifaceted and multidimensional catastrophes with uncertain consequences. And just yesterday, the recurrent and systematic Israeli aggressions against Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen are continuing until today.
Mr. Attaf carried on saying that peace and security in the Middle East cannot be achieved without imposing on everyone equal respect for the rules of international law, stressing that this is about putting an end to the special impunity enjoyed by the Israeli occupation. Meanwhile, the Minister of State in charge of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, has met with his Jordanian counterpart, Ayman Safadi, on the sidelines of the 51st session of the Council of Foreign Ministers of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation in Istanbul. During the talks, they examined the serious developments in the Middle East following the continued aggression against the Islamic Republic of Iran and the continuation of the genocidal war waged against the brotherly Palestinian people in Gaza, with all the atrocities in the West Bank and Al-Quds. The Algerian diplomacy chief also met with his Mauritanian and Egyptian counterparts, with whom he discussed the situation in the Middle East. The Israeli occupation has pursued its bombardments against the Gaza Strip, killing and wounding scores of Palestinians. At least 5 people were killed and several others wounded, including 2 children in the central part of the territory. Yesterday, 18 Palestinians were killed while queuing outside an aid center west of Rafah in the southern part of the besieged enclave. Meanwhile, hundreds of thousands took to the streets of London to protest against the pursuit of the Israeli attacks on Gaza. The demonstrators chanted pro-Palestinian slogans denouncing the Israeli occupation and also rejecting the Israeli attacks on Iran. And back to the country now, and in Algiers, the Prime Minister Nadil Arbawi today received the Minister of Social Development of the Sultanate of Oman, Leila bint Ahmed bin Oud Al Najjar, now on a visit here. During the meeting, the two sides examined the relations of friendship linking the two countries and discussed ways and means of promoting bilateral cooperation. The Minister of Foreign Trade and Export Promotion, Kamal Razik, has called from the city of Blida on economic operators to seize the opportunity offered by the organization of the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair in Algeria next September to conquer the continent's markets. Mohamed Khatil has the details.
Speaking at an information day organized under the theme The African Trade Challenge 2025 as part of preparations for Algeria's hosting of the IATF 2025, Mr. Razik emphasized the importance of taking advantage of this major economic event scheduled from September 4 to 10 to invest in the African market, which he described as the largest trading space in terms of participation. The challenge is real and faces everyone, leaders and heads of public and private companies, to invest in Africa and conclude as many partnership agreements as possible during this economic meeting, highlighting the enormous potential Algeria has in this area. Mr. Razik also recalled the efforts made by Algeria in implementing the policy of President Abdelmajid Tebboune, which has led to the opening of several border crossings with African countries and the creation of the Free Trade Zone. In this regard, he announced that his services, in coordination with the Algerian Export Insurance and Guarantee Company, CAGEX, would organize in the coming days the largest activity dedicated to exporters, given their significant role in economic challenges. For his part, the president of the Entrepreneurs and Industrialists Club, CEI, Rashid Bouhamed, emphasized the importance of this meeting initiated by the club in coordination with the business school and various stakeholders, stating that it reflects the commitment of all operators to ensure the success of this economic event. This meeting, attended by the Director General of Customs, Major General Abdelhafid Bakhouch, executives from the Foreign Trade Directorate, and various stakeholders in the sector, featured the presentation of several papers.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International, and Algeria's pioneering experience in religious tolerance and the defense of just causes around the world has been presented at the plenary session of the Second Parliamentary Conference on Inter-Religious Dialogue organized by the Interparliamentary Union and the Italian Parliament in Rome.
Algeria's experience was presented by Mohamed Mshigig, member of the National People's Assembly, who highlighted Algeria's vision drawn from its centuries-old history and its pioneering experience in religious tolerance, legislation guaranteeing freedoms, and the defense of just causes around the world, with the Palestinian cause at the forefront. The Algerian MP also warned against the increase in international violations that undermine the foundations of interreligious and intercultural dialogue and the exploitation of religion and identity to justify violence, repression, and discrimination, citing the situation in Gaza and the occupied territories, which he said will remain an indelible stain on the conscience of the world. After reiterating Algeria's commitment under the leadership of the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmadjid Tebboune, to remain a voice for a just peace, a space for coexistence and freedoms, and a committed actor in building a just and dignified world, Mr. Mshigig called for implementing this dialogue through laws protecting individuals, institutions, guaranteeing rights, and awaken consciences defending dignity. It should be noted that parliamentary and religious delegations from around the world participated in this conference, which was also attended by the IPU president and the speakers of both chambers of the Italian parliament.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. That's it for our news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to our economic program compiled and presented by Said Bouazi.
Hello and welcome to our weekly program devoted to Algerian economic news.